Bob Lamont is a longtime agent who represents Jon Gruden and many other coaches and executives in the NFL. He spoke with Ira Kaufman of JoeBucksFan.com recently, and Lamont used the term that Brent Musburger did back when this was all happening to Gruden, calling it a hit job that resulted in Gruden being pushed out as coach of the Raiders. Emails from 2011 that were then leaked to the media, forcing Gruden out. Here's what else Lamont said. I really believe in my heart and soul that Gruden will coach again. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. My question is, what did Jon really do? Most people wouldn't want their private emails from 10 days ago looked at. That's why if you were to go to trial, it would be devastating for the National Football League. This wasn't good for anybody. That's why he ended up suing the NFL and Goodell, because everyone knows it was wrong. You have 650,000 emails, and his 6 were picked out. He wasn't even in the league. He prevailed in court, and he will prevail again. I think that Lamont was hitting in a strategy there for the litigation where maybe they will try to take a look at the email messages of other prominent figures in the NFL from 10 years ago. What have they said in those moments? I don't know that a judge is going to let them do that, because I think at a certain point it becomes a fishing expedition, which typically is frowned upon in litigation. You have to be looking for evidence that is either relevant or reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. I don't know that saying, well, I want to see Roger Goodell's emails from 10 years ago, and I want to see this person's, I want to see that person's. I don't think that flies. The argument may have some appeal, though, right? It may.
Yeah.
But I still don't buy the idea that he's going to coach again. I don't care if he wins $100 million in his lawsuit. I don't think any NFL team is going to hire him to be the head coach again.
I'm with you there, 100%. I think Bob Lamont, the Bob Lamont hype machine, it's really what people around the NFL call it. He's a master at that. I think he's trying to speak it into existence. I'm sure it's still eating at Jon Gruden, who loves football and watching film and doing all those things. And, what Bob Lamont is saying, or what any of us, is that it is a hit job. He got screwed. There's no doubt about that. He did. It was not fair. And, I think, I don't know why it happened. I think you and I have our reasons of why we think it happened, but we don't know that. But I just don't think, no, with this current climate and the world we're in and the language that was used in those emails, that's where, again, lines like, hey, most people don't want, their emails from 10 days ago. That to me is just I don't even know what I want to call that. Just talk. That's just talk.
Yeah.
I've never wrote an email to anybody that goes along those lines or uses those language. No way. So that's where and there's a lot of people out there that are just like me that have never gone like that or even had those thoughts when they were writing an email or a text or anything like that. So I'm not saying I'm sitting here being perfect. I've sent a lot of people the middle finger emoji and some stuff like that, but certainly haven't even gotten close to, some of the territory that Jon Gruden used in that. And that's where I'm with you. There's no way he'll ever be back in the NFL. Maybe college football, maybe there, but there's no way the NFL is having him back.
The question is whether or not Gruden is part of a broader culture or whether or not he's an aberration. And that was one of the things that we talked about a lot in the aftermath of that. Is this indicative of how folks in these positions typically communicate, or is it a one-shot thing? Is he the only one? And maybe they find out through this litigation. And look, he got what he deserved, but there are things about it that still bother us. They were 10-year-old emails. They were part of a trove of documents that were supposedly being kept secret, but someone weaponized just a few of them to take out Jon Gruden. During a season, it hurt the Raiders and it hurt Gruden. But still, all that said, he sued the NFL. He sued Roger Goodell. He's not getting back in the NFL. Look at Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, yeah, he initially got shunned because of the anthem thing, but when you take on Big Shield and you force them to pay between $5 and $10 million, that doesn't get you a red carpet rolled out to go join one of the other teams in a fairly small shop. Who else is going to hire him? That's the other thing too, Chris. Mark Davis was the only one that was going to hire him 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He wasn't very good. He didn't go to the playoffs once in the 3 years that he finished there. Maybe he would have made it last year since the team made it without him. But it's not like people are going to be saying, well, Jon Gruden is just a Super Bowl championship waiting to happen.
No, you're right about that. I don't think anybody's thinking that. And I think your point with like Big Shield taking that on, it certainly doesn't help his case that way. Definitely. And then, anything politics or insensitive, borderline racist comments and some other, ingenuous language that was used there, it's not going to fly. And again, not that football coaches are perfect or anything, but I don't think you're going to go around football and seeing a lot of emails, if they did release them, that are going to quite look like that. I'm sorry, they're not. As much as I want to respect my old coach and everything there, you're not going to find that. Certainly from not the new age coaches and the Bill Belichick's of the world and those type of guys, I would just have a hard time believing that too. So that's where I don't buy that all the way. And yeah, it is unfortunate. He wasn't even in coaching, and he wasn't even in the NFL when this was sent. And it's all weird. But unfortunately, it did happen, and the facts are the facts at this point, and I just can't see any way that any team's going to want to bring him in and then deal with the backlash, distraction, all of those type of things where fan base is going to be like, what? And it's just not going to be a good look for the Shield, at the end of the day.
By the way, for those of you keeping at home a Simmsism scorecard, ingenuous is a word. Yes. It just doesn't mean what Chris thought. It means innocent and unsuspecting. So
disgenuous? What am I looking for?
Disingenuous.
Disingenuous.
And that's really,
that's still not.
Still.
Well,
you got lucky.
Okay.
You got lucky.
Okay.
A word came out that happened to actually be recognized by the language. It just doesn't mean what you thought it meant. Yeah, I won't even be stunned. I'm saying there is no way in hell one of the 32 franchises in the NFL, or 30, because the Bucs and the Raiders are probably not bringing it back. Although I don't know how long Josh McDaniels is going to be the coach of the Raiders, but I guess if anybody would give the NFL the middle finger and hire the guy again, it would be Mark Davis. I still don't see it happening anywhere for him in the NFL, and he's not going to reduce himself to go work for the XFL or the USFL.
No. I mean, maybe with Gruden, college football, maybe something he looks at there where he could be a part of a program that, is willing to kind of swipe this under the rug, but I don't think so either.
Do you really see him
I don't.
properly interacting with 18 and 19-year-olds from the standpoint of being patient and teaching them?
No.
He doesn't like teaching. I mean, he wants guys who are going to be ready to go.
Yeah, no, you're
you
exactly
lived it.
Right. Yeah, I lived it. He doesn't. Hey, the years I was there, and I know one of the complaints with the Glazer family when they finally fired Jon Gruden was the lack of developing of young talent. Because anytime we had a hole in the roster, we were always looking for the 10-year veteran to fill in, and I think that's a real thing with Jon Gruden, and he flirted with the idea of Notre Dame and a few places like that. But ultimately, I think like what you said is spot on. He's just not made for that, having to BS with parents and kiss their butts and, act like the high school kid that hasn't done crap is the greatest thing you've ever seen, and you got to roll out a red carpet. That ain't Jon Gruden, let alone, I think even in college football, what he did was, too bad to where they can't let that happen either.
By the way, the status of the lawsuit. Jon Gruden did win on the question of whether or not the case would be forced into the secret rigged kangaroo court of arbitration that is run by the NFL. The NFL undoubtedly will appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal, and I think it'll be bogged down for months, if not years. Not many years, but a couple years, as the NFL tries to get someone at some higher level of the justice system to disagree with the ruling that the case stays in court. They don't want this case in court. Of all the cases we've seen in recent years, this is the one they don't want in court, because if it's in court, there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out that's going to make the NFL look bad.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.